Founders, generally speaking, are like children with too much energy. Just as children that are always ready to jump around require parental guidance so they don't get into all types of problems, thereby causing distress to the parents and themselves, so do funders, and particularly the new generation founders, require guidance from investors. In reality, investors are usually older people with more working experience. This is particularly critical for institutional or corporate investors, whether full-blown institutional investors or entry-level venture capitals and syndicate institutions. While founders have the responsibility officially to ensure that funds entrusted to their hands are utilized and accounted for properly, corporate investors have a responsibility of holding the founders accountable to commitments reached at fundraising or at the time of issuing the funds. Humans run entities, and they have the tendency of going against pre-agreed terms, both intentionally or out of negligence. This is the same reason most democratically elected governments have three management arms for checks and balances: the executive, legislature, and judiciary. The checks and balances have nothing to do with whether the president is a good person or otherwise. Failure by the corporate investors to ask questions and keep track of the utilization of funds by startups is considered by founders as a license to mismanage funds and other resources, and they have repeatedly proven this to be true. A failure by corporate investors to hold founders accountable is an indication, on the other hand, that the investors are not also accountable for the pool of funds under their management. Board representation is one way of ensuring accountability. While advocating for board representation for every institutional investor looks like a bad idea and may not be ideal, it is important that at any time a corporate investor joins the investors list of any startup, that they make board representation a condition for investing. Where there are existing corporate investors, and it makes no sense crowding the board seats of the startup with new representations, then the corporate investors should come together and elect a seat that will actively look out for their interests jointly. This seat should hold the startup accountable and issue regular reports on the startup's performance to the members of the corporate investors he or she represents. At the time of investing, there should be clear red lines defined by the investors, with some slack provisions. This will form the primary point of reference for the job of the rep. It is not expected that this board rep should stifle innovation and creativity, but proper communication and authorization where necessary should precede any major change in strategy and direction. This is one way of keeping the startup on alert and avoid the temptations of the demons that may be singing in the ears of its management, or I should say CEO.